What's good, everyone? This your main correspondent, Alan Taylor, and I'm back in the broadcast room yet again, always with another one. And yes, indeed, it is another one. So this is where we at here. For some reason, this one particular judge is in an uproar. He's fired up. I don't understand what's going on here. He wants to know the reason why Trump is deporting all these illegals out of here. First of all, they're illegal. Second of all, they've been committing crimes over here. And third of all, they're they're not our problem as citizens. They're not even citizens here. I mean, I don't understand.
And that, my friends, is the bottom line.
I really don't. And it's a huge problem. And I think it's just truly disrespectful to the administration that this judge is asking all these type of ridiculous questions, wanting to know all this stuff. What for? I mean, what are you benefiting off this or something? So, all right, we're about to dive off into this. We're going to go to Fox and then CNN and see what's going on here. Quarters, nickels, and dimes, people.
261 illegal MS-13 gang members, some MS-13 ringleaders. Donald Trump is calling them terrorists because many of them don't have America's best interest in mind, and they're here illegally. So he puts them on planes. He sends them to El Salvador. And in the middle of those flights, a judge says, no, you have to stop. You have to turn these planes around. And then Donald Trump says, well, they're not in American airspace anymore, so it's too little too late. The judge is now giving Donald Trump until noon today to file briefings and to answer these 4 questions. Do you want to read these questions?
Yeah, so he has a few questions. He says that he wants to know how many planes departed the United States at any point on Saturday carrying any people being deported solely on the basis of this proclamation. He also wants to know how many people in the category were on each plane, what foreign country or countries did these planes land in, and what time did these planes take off from the United States and from where?
Well, and here's the thing. This all came to a head on Saturday night, and it is because late Saturday, just before the flights took off, apparently the ACLU and another group sued the federal government, and they went before the judge, and they started talking about what to do. And the judge issued an order from the bench. It was an oral order. He said, okay, turn those planes around. And now the White House says, well, it wasn't until, it didn't take effect essentially until the written order came out. So right now it's all about the timeline and stuff. Ultimately, what the judge wants to know is whether or not that original lawsuit where the ACLU filed against the federal government to keep 5.
Hold on here. Peep this out. Did this dude have a Michael Jordan tattoo on? Man, stop it. Is that supposed to be MJ? This is crazy.
ACLU filed against the federal government to keep 5 Venezuelans off the plane. He wants to know whether or not those people went on the plane. From what I've read, it sounds like they did not make the trip. And so that should satisfy him. And ultimately, the federal government has broad latitude when it comes to enforcing immigration and stuff like this. So it'll be interesting to see what happens today.
And remember who this judge is. He's an Obama-appointed judge who actually gave Kleinsmith. He was the guy who made up the whole FISA warrant, reversed what it actually meant, and allowed Carter Page to be surveilled illegally. He basically got a slap on the wrist. Remember, also, this judge has got a wife who's a radical leftist, Hillary Clinton, a huge Hillary Clinton supporter. He seems to be an activist judge, and he seems to be really getting ahead of himself on how much weight he actually carries in terms of foreign policy with America. Here's our press secretary yesterday.
These are heinous monsters, rapists, murderers, kidnappers, sexual assaulters, predators who have no right to be in this country, and they must be held accountable.
Is the administration prepared to give the court what it wants in terms of the time of the flights that departed, that went to El Salvador, and some of those details that the judge is asking for in trying to determine the timing? The verbal order did say turn around the flights if there's an issue. So is the administration prepared to provide that information?
I'm prepared to provide it right now. All of the planes that were subject to the written order, the judge's written order, took off before the order was entered in the courtroom on Saturday. And the administration will, of course, be happily answering all of those questions that the judge poses in court later today.
I just don't think you're going to get much sympathy from the American people when they see a bunch of criminals on a plane. First of all, everyone agrees that all of these people that were taken to prison are illegally in the country. All right, that's not under dispute. When it comes to the briefing that Steve was alluding to, we're talking about 5 people on separate planes.
Right.
All right, so it's one thing to object to a few people on the plane, but to say that all of the planes full of MS-13, Trinidad that have been...
Why would you be upset about that?
Why would you say bring those people back to the country? It just doesn't make any sense.
So let's put it this way. Everybody knows the injunctions filed against this administration is setting all times of records.
Yeah.
They're doing everything possible to stop the total Trump agenda in a way in which is just stunning today. You talk about 64 injunctions out of the 127 nationwide injunctions. All since 1963 has been 127. There's been 64 just against Trump. He's only been in office for 2 months. So this is the way they're trying to stop him. So here's my question. We got to get more of these guys out. We cut a great deal with El Salvador. They know how to lock and hold brutal prisoners, right?
Man, do y'all see that facility? Do you see the mass facility here? This is wild, bro. Look at that there. They are not playing around in El Salvador. Hey, low key, I think El Salvador may end up being the world's prison.
So what the French toast is there to think about?
Let's not play around with this game here. I think that's what the president of El Salvador is kind of reaching for. And to be honest with you, too, let's break this down. It's no way in hell that we're supposed to, I don't know what's up with this particular judge and things like that, what his issue is, but for him to want them to turn that plane around that's full of, first of all, people that are here illegal. Second of all, highly influential gang members from other countries and stuff like that. For him to want that plane to come back, I mean, what's the agenda here? What is his issue? What does he really want? What is he going to gain for bringing these people back? And if they come back, if they would have come back, where were we supposed to put them? What were we supposed to do with them? They already committed crimes. So where were we supposed to keep them? I mean,
brutal prisoners, right? We saw that whole system. $6 million, you can't go wrong. So this is a deal that Marco Rubio helped cut. It's awesome. So here's the thing. Would it help if you just give the mini bios and the transgressions of these terrorists, 161 of them, 261 last week? Is that what the judge wants? So if you let the judge know who they are, list the rap sheets, now they go, because we have to continue this. I'm not worried. These guys are gone for good. I want more flights.
This was a great deal. We have terrorists out of our country, people who are rapists, who have done heinous crimes. They're in another country now. There are 261 of them. We paid them $6 million approximately, according to Caroline Levitt. It would cost so much more than if we had to house them here. And the judge, now people are calling for his...
Oh, it would cost them way more. And then they would be sitting around here watching cable TV all day. And if y'all seen footage on the internet now, TikTok and all that stuff, a lot of these prisoners, they actually have cell phones inside the prisons now, which is which is crazy to me. It's like, aren't you supposed to be in prison? Your punishment is supposed to be that you're not having any type of outside world activity going on as far as the comforts that we enjoy outside of prison. I don't understand. I do not understand. America's being truly relaxed on this prison system. And that's the reason why Trump is like, screw that. No, we're not going to get them this relaxed situation like we're doing with our home prisoners. We're going to send them over to El Salvador, make them bend their necks, bend their knees, be in chains, and they're going to sit there and eat their porridge.
So what the French toast is there to think about?
Right.
Impeachment. Congressman Brandon Gill on X said, I'll be filing articles of impeachment against activist Judge James Borsberg this week. And Elon Musk wrote back, necessary.
Well, in fact, the Department of Justice a couple of days ago wrote a letter asking the Court of Appeals above him to replace him because of the way he has handled this case. Ultimately, there are people who say, look, those people, sure, they're terrorists, but they deserve due process. That's their argument. And so how
do they deserve due process when they're illegal? They're not citizens of this country. Due process is reserved for naturalized citizens of this country, be it through, immigration, getting naturalized, or you're naturally born here as a true American. That's who that's reserved for. This is ridiculous.
That is why the president on Friday night signed that executive order invoking the Alien Enemies Act of 1798, targeting those gang members. Ultimately, the president referred to it as an invasion, but is it a time of war? War has to be declared by Congress, and that is why this judge is going to have this hearing today. Don't look for a ruling, but ultimately that's what they've got to decide.
Tom Homan believes that it's the war on terrorism, and since the president declared them as terrorists, this is what he had to say.
What do you say to those who claim you're using a 200-year-old law to circumvent due process?
An old law? Not as old as Constitution. We still pay attention to that, don't we?
Hey, Tom was right on that. Y'all saw that in my other broadcast. So listen, look, we're about to move over to CNN and see what they had to say, because, you know, this is wild out here that this judge is moving this way. This is crazy. Let's go here now.
Tonight here in Washington, there is a tone of defiance coming from the White House as a federal judge is still waiting on answers from a Justice Department that doesn't seem eager to provide them following that testy court hearing today. Now, all of this started when President Trump invoked a rarely used wartime law called the Alien Enemies Act to deport hundreds of alleged members of a Venezuelan gang from the United States to El Salvador. Now, those deportation flights were carried out on Saturday night, despite a federal judge telling the administration to turn the planes around and return to the United States as these legal issues were sorted out. Judge Boasberg was back in court with Justice Department attorneys tonight. And while no cameras were in the courtroom, the CNN team who was reports that it grew contentious as the administration attorneys repeatedly stonewalled a clearly perturbed judge, refusing to even answer basic questions from him, leading him at one point to place his hands on his hips and shake his head with his eyes closed. At one point, he summed up the Justice Department's reasoning as, quote, "We don't care, we'll do what we want." The Trump administration, on the other hand, is arguing it did not violate Judge Boasberg's order since it was initially an oral directive and thus, quote, not enforceable. In plain English, they're saying that he said it out loud, but he has to write it down before it's real. Now, the timeline of all of this is crucial, and we've charted it out here for you because it was 5 p.m. Eastern on Saturday afternoon. That is when the judge kicked off this initial hearing over Trump's attempt to use these wartime powers to deport these alleged members of the Venezuelan gang. Now, it was briefly adjourned 22 minutes later for the government to collect more information. In that time, 2 removal flights took off en route to El Salvador, which had agreed to take in these Venezuelan migrants for about $6 million. But after 6:45 p.m., the judge verbally told the Justice Department to turn around any planes that were carrying people being deported under the Alien Enemies Act. And the verbal order came after 2 flights had taken off, but before they had landed, and before a 3rd flight had even taken off from the United States.
Okay, so the flights had already left. About time, if you get there, hold on. Let's see, let's look at this. Yeah, that's international waters now, because our water is back here. This is the Gulf of America here. They've crossed the Gulf of America. It's over with.
Take in these Venezuelan migrants for about $6 million. But after 6:45 p.m., the judge verbally told the Justice Department to turn around any planes that were carrying people being deported under the Alien Enemies Act. And the verbal order came after 2 flights had taken off, but before they had landed, and before a 3rd flight had even taken off from the United States. Now, the written order from the judge came about 40 minutes after that. I've been working to chase down the details on this timeline, when the administration got this information, when they found out what the order was. And that included at today's press briefing, where we sought answers on where they draw the line between a judge's verbal order and a written one.
Oh, shit. They gave a commercial. Fuck them.
You keep talking about the judge's written order, which hit the docket Saturday night at about 7:26 p.m. But he issued a verbal order before that at about 6:45 and 6:48 p.m. based on the court hearing. A verbal order from the bench. Does the White House feel the need to comply with a verbal order from this judge?
Again, as I said, all of the planes subject to the written order of this judge departed U.S. soil, U.S. territory before the judge's written order.
But what about the verbal order, which of course carries the same legal weight as a written order, and said for the planes to turn around if they were
Well,
in the air?
there's actually questions about whether a verbal order carries the same weight as a legal order, as a written order, and our lawyers are determined to ask and answer those questions in court.
Hey, and that's just that. Listen, look, Caroline ain't playing no games. Shout out to her. And man, I don't understand what this judge's problem is with wanting to bring back illegal terrorist people, wanting to bring back criminals. What is the Democratic Party needing with these people that are criminals? Now, I mean, Jesus Christ. It just boggles my mind to see that what we've come to in this country, to where we're so divided in this country, to where, you know, we would, half of us want actual, you know, terrorists to come live here, and the other half of us want to get them out. And I'm talking about from other countries. And this is wild out here to see the way that this is going, and the lack of respect that we have from these treasonous Americans, because that's what this is. These people are using what power that they have to be treasonous against this country. And like I've always said in previous broadcasts and stuff like that, protect this country from enemies, foreign and domestic. But it is what it is, though. Shout out to all my subscribers. Mad love to y'all. If you're new to the channel, please hit that like, share, subscribe button. Make sure you ring that bell to be notified whenever I decide to post things. And like I always say,
and that, my friends, is the bottom line.
That, my friends, is the bottom line.